you organize all the hard work they've put into constructing the program, and to commiserate with them and with all of us, of course, for the need to have it on Zoom rather than at the University of Cyprus in sunny Nicosia. And this talk looks at songs from Archaic Lesbos, tries to show that in their construction agenda, the repertoire of both Sappho and Archaic includes the comic as well as the serious. And I emphasize the term songs, especially, I suppose, today. I think Archaic was probably a combination of Theodorakis and Pithekotsis. He could compose words and music, and he could sing them to the accompaniment of his stringed instrument in a way that secured popularity in his lifetime and immortality thereafter. Most of what survives of Sappho's songs, and I shan't try to find a modern comparison for Sappho, most of her songs are at the serious end of the spectrum. Her persona cantans constructs an image of young women, paides, whose skills are displayed in conversation, fragment 31, which is handout 1, 3 to 4, ardu 4 naisais, playing the lyre, kaluna, in fragment 58, handout 2, and also dance, again, fragment 58 and 96, and whose godlike physical beauty, handout 3, doubtless aided by these musical skills, makes them greatly desirable. One aspect of that beauty repeatedly voiced is that the girl is apala, tender or soft, and I put together in handouts number 4 to 6, which I'm trying at the moment to move down, a whole number of places where the praise word apalos is used by Sappho. These are handouts 4 to 8. But good femininity involves a readiness to follow the dictates of eros, desire, may be implied by fragment 1, which is my handout 15, to which I'd come later. Even if that entails abandoning husband and child, fragment 16, and the reciprocation of eros involves sexual acts which are presented as pleasurable in themselves, handout 9, fragment 48, and whose recollection gives pleasure as well as pain to the persona amans constructed, for example, in fragment 94, handout 10. Just as the appreciation of things good and beautiful, kala, handout 11, which can later be remembered, is a defining feature of the admirable young woman, pais, so too bad femininity is marked by the lack of qualities or actions which might be rewardingly remembered. Thus, handout 12 in fragment 55, the target of Sappho's quasi-iambic invective seems to be charged with musical or poetic inadequacy. She lacks the roses from Pieria and is so doomed to be forgotten. Rusticity in dress and bearing is another mark of the woman who fails to live up to Sappho's ideal, an ideal that already exploits the contrast between city and country that was later to be important in constructing different male and female comic types in Attic Komodia. So fragment 13, the charge of, handout 13, the charge of being agroiotis. Other marks of bad femininity were doubtless to be found in poems now lost, in which, according to Herodotus, Sappho attacked katakertomisi, Caraxes's beloved, the Naucratis Hetaira, Dorica. And here I share the view of Maria Kazanskaya that the pronoun min, identifying the object of Sappho's katakertomia, refers to the Hetaira and not to the brother Caraxes. And I take it that such invective poetry is what is referred to as iamboi in the Suda entry on Sappho, and that Sappho neither composed nor was later credited with poems in the Ionic iambic tradition and its associated meters. For this, see my bibliography with an excellent handout, an excellent discussion by Richard Martin in 2016. The brief part of the Suda entry is item 14 on the handout. So far, it is only this streak of invective that has brought us within reach of the comic. Sappho's construction of the emotions of her Paides and of her own emotions is predominantly serious, as I said earlier. But that is not true of what may be her most famous song, item 15, handout 15, poem 1. I hesitate to say fragment 1 because it seems pretty clear to me here is a complete poem. And there, the persona cantans offers a subtly humorous take on a powerful eros that has gripped the persona amans. The pains of that eros are in close focus near the beginning of the singer's prayer to Aphrodite, line 3, me masai se me domnia si damna, as they are in the recently found lines of the so-called Kypros poem. But the mock cult title Doloplike in line 2 alerts us to see that this song is not wholly serious. And when it turns out that on her previous descent, the singer recalls Aphrodite's chariot to have been drawn not by swans or other high status birds, but by orcas, truthoi, swift sparrows, we are well prepared for the comedy that follows. Aphrodite smiling, mind the eyes us, not only to show that she is benign, but also to cue Sappho's audience, comes near to mocking her with her own repetition of duty, 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 comes near to mocking the ever-recurring erotic passions that characterize this persona amans. Goddess and audience know that this cri de coeur is only one of many that have defined and will continue to define the serial erastria, to borrow a later term from the comedian Eupolis, as we know from Pollux. Goddess and audience are well aware that the Sappho now praying to Aphrodite will sooner or later, probably sooner, lose interest in her present quarry and will start pursuing a different girl. And in her capacity as persona cantans, Sappho, of course, knows this too. I can only say a little in time available about Sappho's construction of good masculinity. This seems, from the brothers' poem, to entail prioritizing protection of one's oikos, something that Charaxus's self-indulgent absence and Larica's tender age or moral inadequacy prevent, while as a corollary, bad masculinity is exemplified by Charaxus's wayward behavior. And I'm tempted by Richard Martin's suggestion that while focusing on Charaxus, Sappho simultaneously delivers a sideswipe at the younger brother Laricus, who should, in Richard's phrase, I quote, man up and protect the oikos, unquote. On the other hand, Charaxus's response to his eros is similar to that which Sappho proved in the case of Helen. So does Sappho have double standards that give more freedom of action to women than to men. Only rarely is beauty picked out as a desideratum in men. In a bridegroom, which might be claimed to be a special case, fragment 110, and in Sappho's apparent description of the young brother Laricus as Euprepes. These are not on the handout. And perhaps it is implied by her description of the husband whom Helen abandoned, Menelaus, as Panaristos. That may have included that he was very handsome, as surely he was. I now turn to Alcaeus. Alcaeus' songs reveal less interest in femininity, good or bad, than in masculinity. I shall not have the time available to tackle the problems of fragment 73, which on some interpretations concern an aging Hetara. And I note only in passing, my item 16 on the handout, that Alcaeus shares Sappho's use of the term apalos, tender, of the hands or arms of attractive young women in his subtly humorous prayer to the river Hebrus, fragment 45. Since the humor of that poem does not bear upon gender construction, I shall not explore it further here. Alcaeus sees good Mytilenean birth as essential. Hence, in fragment 72, my item 17, his vituperation of the woman that I have earlier argued not to be Pittacus's mother, but his grandmother, a Thracian grandmother, which is a blight on his claims to political participation. Along with having good, that means elite, Mytilenean blood, Alcaeus' good man fights bravely. He is loyal to his Hetairai, whereas Alcaeus' bad man, exemplified by Pittacus, is disloyal, and he breaks oaths sworn jointly with these Hetairai, thus insulting the gods and inviting their punishment. Handout 18. Keinon fusgo nude lexita prostum alla radios possin embais et orchios idapte tam polin. Little of Alcaeus' constructions of himself as a determined and trustworthy Hetairos is anything other than wholly serious. But one side of his construction of the enemy as the false or bad Hetairos does have a comic element. That is the string of abusive epithets we know from Diogenes Laertius, handout 18, that he fired off against Pittacus, one of which is the term fusgoen in my handout 18, and the Diogenes Laertius passage is not 18 but 19, center screen at the moment. These epithets are pithier and less inventive than the animal comparisons developed by Simonides fragment 7, but in their focus on physical abnormalities and in the fact that some are apparently innovative compounds, they can be seen as forerunners of entertaining, invective, and innovative compounds that we find in Attic Old Comedy. Though they do not initiate the practice of using entertaining compound adjectives in invective, something found already in Iliad. For example, Hector's label of Paris as Kunaimanes, Iliad 339. I haven't put that on the handout. These accusations of physical abnormality imply that the ideal male is handsome, but it is only when singing the young Eromenos that this is made explicit. Physical beauty, kalos, may thus be implied in, but is not explicitly ascribed to Alcaeus and his Hetairai. For example, the Hetairos Melanippus of fragment 38, for whom see handout 22. But we know from Horace that in poetry, sadly lost, Alcaeus praised the black eyes and black hair of his presumed Eromenos Lycus, handout 20. And doubtless, handout 21, the charming Menon of fragment 368, ton charienta Menona, was a handsome Eromenos. Another comic streak, a different sort of comic streak, may be detected in Alcaeus' description of his flight and abandonment of his weapons in the Troad, in a song that seems to precede his rupture with Pittacus, and so is perhaps quite early in his symptotic lifetime. See the information gathered in handout 22 and 23, Herodotus and Strabo. I don't discuss this further now because I've discussed it recently in Bowie 2019, the first item on the bibliography. I end the paper with a short conclusion. Mostly, Sappho is deadly serious in her presentation of herself as a woman extremely susceptible to eros, desire. But fragment 1 shows that as persona cantans, she can engage in some self-mockery, and mockery of other women who fail to meet gender expectations is more frequent. Alcaeus too offers a case of self-mockery, perhaps early in his life, and his construction of the ideal aner is best demonstrated by its negation in his proto-comic invective against Pittacus. Thank you very much.